Welcome everybody to the Arkatech Beatz music business podcast. I am one of the hosts of Arkatech Beatz, Jugrnaut, with my partner
Mike Trauma D.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
This is our first podcast as it relates to us doing what we're doing as far as the music business is concerned. I wanted us to do something. I guess it's long overdue, considering our level of experience, etc. But for those who are not familiar with us and what we've done, we are multi-platinum producers. We've done gold and platinum records for a lot of the hip hop community. Our claim to fame is Capital Punishment by Big Pun, multi-platinum album, Grammy nominated album. And that kind of springboarded our careers to work with some of the largest and most iconic artists in the industry, from Nas to Wu-Tang to Raekwon. We've done everything from Freddie Gibbs, Killer Mike,
Mac D, The Game, Maya,
Waka Flocka,
Shorty Low, Prodigy of Mod D.
Long list.
Yeah,
long list of of who we've worked with. So I guess our journey is a little bit different from a lot of other people's. Our experience is different from a lot of other producers, quote unquote, because we have a duality that a lot of producers do not have. And for the early parts of our careers was spent in the historic record label Loud Records, right? So our careers started there. More so your career, Mike, because you were the one that kind of brought me in on that situation. But if you want to tell the folks how you got into Loud Records, how did you get into A&R executive situation, and then we can kind of put our timeline together and then kind of start going into some different other topics.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey, because it's my journey and your journey, like kind of both like going in its own direction and then coming together, So there's actually two sides of the same story. Like while I'm doing this, meantime, elsewhere this is happening. So it's very interesting. Well, I started interning at Loud Records. Was around the time the Shook Ones, Mobb Deep, recently came out. And I believe if my memory serves me correctly, they were prepping the Raekwon's Cuban Link out to drop. Now, around that time, in order to get into the music business, or as far as if you wanted to work at a record label, you normally would do the interning route. So that's the route that I took. Went to the record label, and went to various record labels to see where I could get in as far as just interning. If I could do some run around for them, whatever I need to do to get in, And it just so happened that a lot of records was actually down the block from an engineering school that I was attending at the time. So I was there I was there very often, just knocking on that front door, just trying to get in. And, they allowed me to do a couple runs for them, whether it's to go to other record labels, to drop things off, pick things up, things like that, whatever little office runs. And the relationship grew into actually getting a position, just, doing mail stuff. So I started working in the mailroom, which was a great experience, because it allowed me to see different areas of the company. I was able to see street team, promotions, marketing, things coming in and out, knowing how things went out to the record labels, knowing what went in, what product went out, what each product is, and what was the purpose. So just being in the mailroom and just seeing all these things coming in and out, and I was able to ask questions and what's this for, what's that for, learning that from the ground up, was a very, I think it started to build, for me, the cornerstone of my understanding of what a record label, the inside of the record label, what it does. And from there, I started working more with the street team, and just providing them with promotional items, and actually going out to some of the high schools and giving out promo items, and being a little bit more hands on.
So when you talk about that now, it's you mailroom. Now we're talking about doing promotion and marketing, right? Because
right.
Folks may not remember that the SRC, which was the Steve Rifkin company, had one of the largest marketing and promotion street teams in New York City at the time. So now, so now we going from the mailroom. Now you're getting the experience as being part of the promotion street team, putting all those bills and stuff all over New York City, going to clubs, doing that type of stuff. So not only now that you get one level of experience, now we're talking about marketing and promotion and street team.
That's correct. I actually was put in charge of. I had a project where I would just. It was like the high school street team where I would go to various high schools and pretty much had a point person at a number of high schools that were that kind of worked for us. So I would go to the high schools and see which kids were interested in promo for Loud, and I'd kind of bring them in and, okay, you rock your school. This is what we're going to do. So it was a dope situation, as far as getting material out there. Very different from what's going on now.
Right.
Very different. So after that, I got involved in a little bit with sales, and radio promotion, those two things, just understanding, when we did putting physical CDs in stores, going to the retail stores and getting a count of, getting an idea, how many records move from this particular store, so that was an experience also, just learning how things moved as far as records were moved individually from stores. So we went to like Virgin Records when the Virgin Records was open. We would go down to Beach Street or wherever, and we'd go in. Okay, they don't have anything on the shelves left of this artist. We got to make sure they restock. So we did a lot of visual checks. Also checking where the records were being positioned in stores, because that was very important. When you walk into a Sam Goody, was your merchandise?
Don't say Sam Goody. We're dating ourselves. Brick and mortar record stores, which some people would not remember. If chain record stores and Coconuts and Tower Records type shit.
When you walk into these record stores, and you have to take count of where was the product being placed. So that was product and placement.
Right.
Was your product right in the front? Who was it next to? And so those are the key things with marketing and promotion that we also did. And then eventually, we moved up into more in the A&R field as we were doing production. As they found out that I was involved in producing, making records, and just playing music throughout the office, and artists started to come and hang out, throughout the mail room and wherever I was sitting, just to check out, some of the beats that I had on hand. I would be the.
So that's where you and I roads meet, right?
Yeah.
So that's where our roads meet. So this is where I had the studio in the Bronx, and then we start, our parents start, pulling us together. Hey, you need to hang out with your cousin more. And okay, and then I'm like, hey, I got the studio over here. You're like, oh, well, I got this equipment over here. I'm like, yeah, I got some more equipment here. Take this equipment. You're like, okay, we put it together. And then we started, just building those beats every week and making those bash music tapes that
used to label them.
10 songs, and every week we would be every week in the lab. Every week we would build 10 songs, and then you would have those playing throughout the office. And I want
to touch on that real quick, man, because I think that was a moment where a telling moment about being consistent.
Yeah,
and that's something that stands the test of time. That people need to really understand the value of being consistent. And, that moment, I would come to the Bronx every weekend. And it was like, okay, I made beats where I was at. You made beats where you were at. We come together. We fine tune what we need to fine tune together. Either EQ this, maybe fix this, drop this, do this, and make sure that our beats were sonically marketable, sonically being able to compete with what was out there.
Yep.
And we did this every weekend, like religiously. And we would make our little beat tapes, 10 songs. We would even take the time out to label each song on the tape. And then I would have it with me for Monday morning if, play throughout the office just to get some feedback, whatever the case may be. And that being consistent, every Monday coming in, listening to what's already being played at the office, coming back, taking that information and coming back and say, yo, Jug, let's get this. We need to do this. Boom, boom, boom. And just being continuously over and over for weeks, months, to the point where artists were starting to check us. Like they were coming into the office and I was their first stop. Before they saw the execs, before they saw anybody, they stopped and checked me. What you got? I just played for them and they're like, oh, that's heat. And I think that is what got us into the whole A&R category. And not far after I was offered a position as an A&R by Loud Records.
And I think that's a lot different from what A&R is today, right? A&R for you, or as you were promoted to A&R at that point, like you're actually a music person, right? You're actually curating the content that the artists are actually using, right? So there's a little bit of a difference now. Right now we're talking about analytical A&Rs, right? Where they're able to kind of look at what's going on in the algorithms, what's going on with numbers, what's going on in certain regions, and then putting the story together that way, but not necessarily A&R from an aspect of we're actually creating the music, with the artist. I think sometimes it's a little bit different, as it is right now. And then the funny thing when you talk about the tapes and stuff that we were doing, I remember you used to bring these tapes from the office. Specifically, there's one artist that I'll always shout out. No ID. You would have a copy of his joints, and you would just be like, "Listen to this," and it wasn't listening to it from the vantage point of trying to bite what he was doing. It was just listening to how his music was sounding sonically, and how so how it was coming through to make sure that we were able to be competitive. Because back in that time, you had to basically have the beats that knocked the loudest, had elaborate switch ups or drum loops, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of a real important time in our beginning. And then I just remember you developing that relationship with Pun, and when we finally were able to get that first record off, because that is our first record, and I think people may not really know that was our first placement, and it was Big Pun's Capital Punishment, which it was huge. It changed our lives, and that was really the record that put us really on the map, and then we were able to kind of segue that into a bunch of other things, especially within the label. And that really changed our lives and led to us doing the Raekwon stuff and led to us getting that production deal. And then you bringing me in on the Raekwon situation, because on the Raekwon situation is when now I'm able to come in as an A&R consultant and now get my experience, because I was in the private sector doing what I was doing, and then just doing different stuff in business. And then now you bringing me into that situation. And that was really huge for me now, because it was funny because it's something that I wanted to do, always wanted to do. That's why I had the studio, right? I always wanted to do it. And then I just took a different route. I didn't know about the Institute for Audio Research, or I didn't know that. Had I had known those things, I didn't have that information. See how the difference was. Like, so now we're in an age where the information is different. Had I had that information, I may have taken a different collegiate route, right? Instead of going to traditional college and doing business and so forth and so on, I may have gone that route. And it's just a different situation now where people have all this access to information, and then, they're just not utilizing it, right? Where back then we would have killed for the information. We would have killed for the opportunities to do that we did. So
yeah, that's the difference with what's going on now. There wasn't no information. They weren't, and then there was a lot of gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You weren't getting anything. You had to figure it all out on your own. So, we were always willing to give the information. Because it was difficult. It was difficult just trying to understand what do you do? How do you get from point A to point B? What do you need? What does it take? And we have to do a lot of things on our own.
Trial and error. Trial and error. We didn't have any managers. We had to switch attorneys a few times, right?
Right.
We didn't get it. We didn't get anything close to a manager until maybe 2010, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Give or take. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean that we was already in the business 12 years, right? Before we even, we made all our largest placements prior to that, But so I want to switch gears a little bit because I know some folks may say, well, why you guys starting a podcast now? It's something that we should have done a long time ago, right? And I always said that. And I've always said that what was going to happen to us eventually was that we were going to wind up in this educational space, in this information resource space, only because of our unique experiences, right? The way that you can talk from the label's perspective, from A&R and artists like MOP, and to the point where we got our own artists pretty much ready to get on, and then the label kind of took a little bit of a different turn, and then we were able to kind of take our own artists and go to a different label, and then have basically deals there, and then we did different things, and then now to where we are currently, we have a new situation, and our situation is with the Orchard, which is a Sony operated company, which is a global distribution deal with them. So, pardon. So when I'm looking at this type of situation for us, I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, we have a plethora of experience. We've been in different places, and now is the time for us, okay, to kind of give this information back to some of the masses. I think what I've been seeing on the internet, and I think that's probably a little frustrating for me personally, is everybody's an expert, right? And and it's like, how is everyone an expert and no one has any real experience in this music business? Because it's only a handful of people that are really in it, right? There are only a handful of people that can really say that they've done anything significant in the business, and they've even been able to collect a check out of this game. And I see a lot of people running around, kind of taking artists for a ride. Especially now we're talking about the internet age, taking artists for a ride, sending out fake emails, telling folks that they can promote them. We'll give you the 24-hour, the 24-hour story.
What's funny? We get that all the time. Like, an artist would reach out to us that we have a good relationship with. Because a lot of artists come to us, a lot of independent artists come to us just to get some information,
right.
just to pick up and get information, and they'll forward us an email. They say, "Hey, I got this. Should I? What is this?" And I could, I look at it, Jug look at it, and that's not from the record label. That's a scam. That's not official. And we're able to do our research or make our phone calls, and like that. That's not it. And like you said, it's very frustrating. When people are taking advantage of these artists. And that's, you guys got to be on point, man. You guys got to be on point with there's people out there that's really just trying to take advantage of you and really just trying to just make a quick buck, and
the one that really kills me is the influencers, right? The influencer. It's like, what is the criterion for an influencer in 2021, right? And how can you determine if that influencer's following is even real, right? Because this is 2021 now. We're talking about anything on the internet can be and will be fabricated, right? As I say to people, it's all cap, right? Shit is all cap. People are out here perpetrating a lot of frauds, charging people a lot of money to use their platforms as quote unquote, I'm gonna basically promote you to my quote unquote base, which artists pay all this money. They're trying to get their little post going because, everybody needs the promo. I understand it, but it doesn't move the needle for the artist. And the artist is wondering, well, what happened? Why didn't we move the needle? What happened with this? And the reality of it is that these are those folks that are, not really in the industry. They have these social media followings that are, some real, some of it is fake, and they really can't push the needle for you on that.
But Jug, what's really interesting is being that we have certain deals and situations, we're able to have access to a lot of behind the scenes analytics and data, and it's interesting to even see that even some of the artists that appear to be doing big numbers or appearing to do well, and you're able to look at some of these things and you're like, wow, it's all cap. Like
it's not real.
It's not real.
It's not real. It's sophisticated capping. And
it's like, is the label involved in some of this capping? Like, it's to that point where you're like,
listen, everybody is in on the scam. Right. And I hate to say it, but I don't want to, be that whistleblower guy. But from the things that I'm seeing, right, there's no legitimate fan base here. Right. There's some elaborate things that are going on in the background that, kind of make it look like it's followers, kind of make it look like extremes, make it look like it's this, make it look like it's that. And that's fine. If that's what you got to do to get your bread, that's what you got to do to get your bread. But the one thing that I want to tell a lot of these artists now is that there's no shortcut to it. If you really want longevity and you want to be in the business for a long time, you're going to have to now build your fan base one by one, and you're going to have to really know your customer. And that's a big deal right now. I think, what's his name used to talk about this a lot, Ryan Leslie, about, the power of knowing who every one of his customers were. And a lot of people were looking at it like as if he was crazy, but no, you do need to build that relationship with every single one of your listeners and ensure that they're going to be treated with kid gloves, because they're going to be the one that afford your career, right? Or make it be that the way that you can afford your lifestyle.
Right.
But
Nipsey did that as well. When he put out some material as a limited supply of music, and kind of labeling it, okay, one of 100, and each person would get each fan, they could purchase it directly, and for, I guess it was $100 at the time,
Right.
and get a actual, signed copy. So it was like from me to you, directly. So it's like knowing your fans and giving them something, forming that relationship, with your consumer,
And what I'm seeing a lot of is that's not happening as much as it should, right? Because artists want to feel like artists. Artists want to feel like they're celebrity, right? but
Yeah.
not realizing that it's these people make you celebrity, and you're gonna have to develop those kind of relationships with those folks, and you're gonna have to engage with your fans in order for them to be your biggest cheerleaders and biggest street team. That's the only way to get the word out about your music. No one is gonna really, excuse me, the way that folks are with business right now, you have to fight for people's attention, and if you're not one of those artists who are able to get the attention of fans and maintain that, it's going to be next to impossible for you to really build a strong fan base. It's going to require more than just some random posts. You got to be strategic about it. And you have to be a little bit more strategic about what you're posting, how you're posting it, and then also the people.
Thousands of music being released every day.
Right. And what makes them want to listen to your music versus everybody else's, and that's always been the issue. So let me ask you this now, right? What do you think of the current state of the music business right now?
Well, it's twofold. It's the current state of the music business, and then there's the current state of music. Business wise, it's the wild, wild west, I think. Because of technology and how it advanced so quickly, internet, streaming, there's a lot of, I think the business aspect hasn't fully caught up properly, because it seemed like this thing happened overnight. We go and look back to a lot of these contracts, everything's outdated, for example, if you did a record, in the early '90s or whatever, or how does that work now, contract wise, when it comes to streaming, when it comes to a lot of these new companies that's popping up saying they're claiming royalties and they claiming this and they claiming that, also the percentage wise, who calculates or who determines how much you're supposed to get per streamer, who agreed to that?
The labels. No one wants to talk about the labels are the ones that made these agreements.
Yeah, but they, so what happens to the artist or the producer? A lot of these things were made without, I guess, consulting with artists and producers of, what these percentages are supposed to look like.
If you think about it, it's kind of like, why would we consult with you if you've already signed off all your rights to us? If we control your likeness and your images and your music, etc., we don't need to ask you what's the percentages. And what these guys have done is they've created a kind of a gangsterization of the music business, where it's kind of like they're probably stakeholders in some of these larger platforms, right? And then also, they've determined the rate. So it's kind of like double dipping, right? You can't be the owner of it or the partial owner of a large streaming platform and then control the largest playlist, right? And then control the largest catalogs. And then at the same time, come back and now say, okay, this is what the artists are going to get in terms of royalties. It's kind of really a lot of some really fucked up shenanigans if you really want to think about it in a larger context. But like you say, in the current state of it, it's the wild, wild west. Anything is going right now, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to have the best music to be successful. You have to have the best marketing and promotion.
Right.
That's the difference. And I think music gets lost. Good music gets lost. Because at the same time, it's like if you're not masterful at marketing and promotion, and let's not talk about the the money that you need to have.
Right.
Make no mistake, folks, if you're trying to break a record in 2021 going into 2022, you need money.
You know what I found interesting, and we spoke about this the other day. You know, an artist mentioned that you're going to need at least $250,000 to market and promote your album properly. And then I thought about it. I said, if you have $250,000 to gamble in the music business, that's what I'm going to say. I honestly, I wouldn't. I don't know if that's ideal.
That's not. You see, what you're saying is real shit, right? Because it's a gamble, and you can't guarantee that ROI.
You know, if you have that to toss to the side, I mean, I could think of a lot of
more viable,
more
solid ways to invest that money.
Right.
Yeah.
That people get top-notch returns. You know, guaranteed. You know,
and we're not talking we're not talking cryptocurrency, folks.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
That's another conversation, right?
Yeah. I find that interesting. You know, it's like it could, if you're not careful, and you say it all the time, it could be a black hole that you're just tossing the money in. You have to be very careful where you're spending your money in this music business. Do you drop X amount of money in getting it placed on a popular website? Do you spend the money to an influencer? Do you spend the money in the studio? There's just so many places and so many people that's got their hand out, and it could be very tricky in trying to figure out what's the best route to take. And that's why so many artists actually come to us and say, ask some of these questions. You know,
because, and I'm always very transparent with them, and I say, listen, I don't know if this is the best place to put your money, right? Like, you know, okay, you put your money on this popular website. You don't know if it's real, right? Like, you don't know if you don't know if the engagement is real. You don't know if it's bots. You don't know what's going on with it. There's no way for you to go behind the iron curtain and see what's really real. So you're putting your money here, and you're thinking that you're going to have some sort of viral situation going, and it just doesn't work that way. You know, it just doesn't work that way, because if you've been on the internet long enough, like, you know, when you first got on the internet, right, and we're talking about way back, right, you'd click everywhere, right? You'd know, okay, I click on an ad by accident, or this is an ad. Now you know what's an ad and what isn't an ad, right? People know how to avoid the things that they don't want to see, right? And I think, you know, if you haven't earned a person's attention, you're not going to get it, right? And I think what happens in this situation is, like, people are paying these influencers, they're paying these different kind of platforms and saying, okay, let me put my money over here. Okay, it's a lot of bread, right? I said, you know, you might be able to use that money a little bit more effectively if you cater to some more, maybe Facebook ads or Google ads, and even those in some cases.
See, some of those are questionable, right? Right.
Because some of those things are questionable, and some folks will swear by it. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, you have to know what you're doing when you're talking about this stuff. But someone couldn't tell me that some of these interactions with some of these folks that you see through Google ads or Facebook ads are real, right? Because they can fabricate, you know, profiles just as well as anyone else, right? So it's hard to tell what's real, what's not real, and you have to be very strategic about where you put your money to get the best bang for your buck as a new artist, to kind of understand, like, okay, if I use an influencer, you know, is the influencer's engagements real, right?
Right.
And is this going to really move the needle? Is this the type of music that this influencer can even promote, right? Because just because they got the following doesn't mean that following is going to resonate with the content that they're putting out. So
Right.
you got to know that too. If you don't know what's going on with that, then you're going to have a different type of situation. But like you said, a lot of artists come to us and they're asking us different questions. They're like, okay, should I do this or should I do that? And it's like, I don't know if you want to put your money there. You might not want to put your money in that situation. Are you doing enough videos? Right? That's a big problem for a lot of artists right now. They're not turning over the videos fast enough. They're doing the songs, or they're hoarding the songs rather, right? Like, hey, you do a song, you got to release it. And then folks are like, I don't want to release these songs. It's like, how are you going to build your audience? Like, you got to put out music. You know, this gets consumed too quickly for you not to be able to put out enough product.
It goes back to what I said earlier about being consistent.
Right.
That's going to be a word that I think that folks need to really understand. You got to be consistent. It has to, like, you got to take that word and write it on the wall in the studio, wherever you work or you're doing this music. You got to be consistent over and over again. You have to keep putting out material over and over again. And you got to, that's the only way it's going to break through. You know, if you're not consistent, if you're doing this 1, 2, and then you're chilling for 4 or 5, you got to continuously keep putting out music, continue beating the pavement, continue putting out product, continue putting out content. You got to be doing it over and over.
So that's going to be the main takeaway, right, for today, right, which is this consistency as far as artists being concerned.
Yeah.
What else do you think artists need to do in order to make themselves successful at this point?
Outside of being consistent, and you touched on this as well, is engaging in each person, each fan as a individually. You got to, and I say this also, win them one by one. You know, don't be scared to get into your DMs and interact with people. You know, interact. You know, don't be standoffish. You know, be approachable. You know, you got to interact. You know, and I think if you're interacting with your fans and they feeling like, okay, I have a relationship with this person, meaning that, you know, I feel special. Like they can put out material and I can get it directly. You know, I don't have to. They could go in the studio and feel like, oh, the person just mentioned me on the live stream. You know, just that personal interaction. You're gonna win fans one by one like that. You know, and I'm sure after a while it's gonna, as you get more fans, it'll be a little bit more challenging. But there are definitely tools that can help streamline those things. But you have to interact, engage with your audience. Definitely.
That's definitely the thing right there, is making sure that we're engaging with the audience. I think that's probably, in my opinion, that's the number one. I don't think artists are really looking at it the way that they need to look at it. I think that they're expecting things to go viral and not really win people over one by one. Switching gears slightly, right? Because we're currently now looking for artists for our situation and our new label, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're in the artist hunt right now, we're looking to put out new artists and we're looking to kind of work with new artists. And I think part of the reason why we've been able to last as long as we've been able to last is because we've been able to identify who's next early, right? We've always been able to say, okay, who's the next person coming up? And we were like, okay, this guy. And then we would work with that guy. So for example, Freddie Gibbs, right? Our work with Freddie Gibbs was very, very early. And, you know, we looked at that, we saw it, we said, hey, this guy is dope, right? Now, mind you, you know, they had to, you know, get through the whole CTE thing and make the split, and then he had to kind of make his different kind of ways, and it may have taken him a little bit more time, but we were spot on with that, right? Because we're talking now that man is coming off of a Grammy-nominated album, right? But
couple other artists as well. So
yeah, you got a few artists that are like that that we were able to kind of catch early, right? Say again.
Trouble.
Right, Trouble was another one that we kind of identified very early, right?
10 years ago.
It's about 10, a little bit more than 10, because you figure when we first started doing the Alley Boy stuff and started working with Duct Tape and banking these guys, this is when, we first transitioned to Atlanta. And, we did some early records with Alley Boy that included him. And we've always said that, that it wasn't going to take it was going to take some time, but we knew that he was going to be the guy that was going to get eventually signed and, be a bigger deal in Atlanta. But again, it's the identification of talent. What would you say you are looking for a new artist, or what does it take? What are we looking for when we're trying to find talent to work with? I got my little bit of list, but what's your list?
Work ethic. It's bugged out, Joe. It's like music is not even the actual number one.
It's funny. It's funny you say
because
that.
that's something that's changed over the years. Like, it used to be, the music. As a person who A&R, it was always the music. It used to always, when working on the record label, it was always used to be the music. Now it's like, okay, because we're in a climate where anything can go. There are things that are going to be needed before you get to the music. You need to know, is the artist willing to push their record, their work ethics? Are they willing to? Are they going to be easy to work with? Because that's a main thing as well.
I have to take the words. You're taking the words out of my mouth when you say that. Like, it's so funny because, like you said, the music is almost secondary now, right?
Right.
Like, before it used to be like, okay, we're talking about, okay, how does the music sound? Is it melodic? Does it have great hooks? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And we get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But it's kind of like, okay, what kind of support does the artist have? Like, when you say the work ethic is the first thing, okay, is this artist relentless and wanting to put out music? That's the first thing, and wanting to create music. How much music is this artist going to create, right? And
right.
then you also said, what's the cooperation level, right?
Yeah.
Because now, especially if we're talking about rap music has become very violent, right?
And ego driven,
right? It's not. Don't get me wrong. I think rap music has always been violent, but now it's not so much on on record. Now it's kind of bleeding over. So now it's kind of like, what kind of artists are we working with? What kind of temperament does this artist have? Is this artist going to be agreeable? Is this artist going to be cooperative? Is this going to be an artist that you're going to be able to pour into, and then they're just going to get themselves into issues when they go out in the street, right? And like, no one wants to waste their time. Everybody wants to be able to kind of work with artists that are going to be agreeable. That's going to be open to feedback.
Right, exactly.
Like, are you open to feedback, right? And are you willing to kind of take what people are saying and, not saying that you're going to listen to anybody, but, there are going to be folks that do have certain levels of experience that, you may have to listen to. And then also the other part of it is that, is this artist going to burn all the bridges that they touch? Right. It's like, that's another thing. It's like, are you going to be able to work with people, and are you going to just be, is everybody just going to be kind of a stepping stone, and then it's like you don't have anybody that you rock with, from front to back.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely an important factor. Being able to gel with an artist, and that energy. You gotta have good energy.
It's real.
Gotta have good energy.
Gotta have good energy, and it gotta be positive energy. And where we currently are, it's like, it's funny. I was saying this to someone the other day, and it was like, everything that you're trying to do, we've already done that. Right. So we've already done it. So if I'm here, and if we're here and we're interested in you, and we're trying to help you, you got to take that help, right? Like, if you're not going to take that help, then it's fine. It's no big deal. But at the end of the day, it's like if you're trying to do something that we've already done, if you're trying to be in the, the double XLs and the Source magazines, and if you're trying to do this and this type of sort of thing, and you're trying to get a gold platinum record, we've already done these things, right? So we kind of have a blueprint that can help to save you some time, right? Or probably help you to save some money, right? But you have to be open to that feedback. You have to be open to what we're trying to tell you, what you need to do. You don't last as long in this business, not being able to be adaptable, right? And that's the one thing that we could say for ourselves is that we've been able to adapt. Whether it's been New York hip hop to Southern hip hop to different technologies, different platforms, we've been able to kind of adapt and been able to roll with those punches throughout the years to remain, as part of the industry. It's definitely something like that. So I want to switch one more gear before we kind of because we've been talking for a while, but we just kind of touched on it slightly as far as cryptocurrency a little earlier, and I wanted to talk about cryptocurrency and NFTs, and for folks who may not be privy to it, especially producers and artists who may not be privy to the whole NFT or the non-fungible tokens. If you don't know what that is, if you want to kind of go into it, because we created our first NFT, and if you want to kind of give folks just a little bit of an idea of what the NFT is and what is it supposed to help do for folks.
Well, we real briefly, because there's tons of topics all over the place now that you can, Google and get some real detail. But just a broad overview, if you're familiar with cryptocurrency, the whole NFT thing is, now you could take artwork, pretty much artwork, and even music, and have it attached to the blockchain, pretty much, and I'm not going to get too detailed into it, but the music business is now jumping into it, and you can now have a audio, a digital copy of your audio in the crypto space. And for example, I'll give you a quick example. I can create 10 individual pieces of a song or artwork, only digital, and it's only these 10 that's available. Think of it as almost like a painting, where you have a Mona Lisa, you have 101, or you have Van Gogh, or you have these pieces, and you can do the same thing, in the crypto space with art and music. So what would happen is I can sell you this piece of music, and you will have the rights for this music in the digital space. And then maybe only be 10, maybe only be one,
right.
And because of that, there has been value in that. You think of also when Wu-Tang came out with a one-of-one album, and that went to auction or that sold for $1 million or whatever the case may be. It's pretty much the same thing, but in the crypto space. And
what makes it so dope, and I don't know if producers and artists are really listening, what makes this so dope is with the NFT, and because it's connected to the blockchain, it will it will always be able to maintain the ownership, right, of whoever it is, if it's for resale, and then you can determine if you get residual based on resale value, right? Because I think if in the case of the Wu-Tang album, it's one of one. If someone buys it from, I think who had it last? Scorelli had it last, and I think somebody else bought it back or something like that. But it's like if you have the art and you resell it, for 10 times the amount, the original owners or the original maker doesn't share in that revenue, right? It doesn't share in that appreciation. Whereas with NFTs, you can set your NFTs up in a way where if it's resold, if it continues to be resold on the open market, you can always be able to attach a royalty to yourself and always be able to get paid on it. So not only does it take artwork to a different level, but the music in itself, like, I don't know if artists really understand the implications of it and what it really represents for, the artists that have huge following. And it's going to change the narrative as it relates to collector's items, right? Because now when we're talking about 1 of 1 or 1 of 10, and the resale values of those type of projects, those things are going to be huge, I think, as the space starts to get a little bit larger. Because with our first NFT, we did ours on a Rarible, and it was just funny when we did it. And I said, I'm glad that we were able to kind of get into this space because we've been rocking with crypto now for quite a few years. And being in this space and kind of trying to be a front runner and trying to make sure that people are educated on what they may be potentially missing. You could be leaving a lot of money on the table, especially if you're an artist or a musician. Like, there's definitely a space you want to explore. One last topic before you and I get off of the first podcast. We've been on the line for about 50 minutes. There were some recent changes at Def Jam. And I like to talk about Def Jam because our history at Loud and Def Jam, that was the competition back in the days, Loud Records versus Def Jam. And, if you had DMX, they had Wu-Tang and, R.I.P. DMX, etc. Recently, the old president of Loud Records, who was Rich Isaacson, was at Def Jam for about 2 years, give or take.
2 years, yeah.
And he's recently moved on. Have they announced who they're going to do to replace him?
Yeah, forgot her name. It's a lady who was doing. I think she was the head of promotion or something like that. I don't have a name on me. But they've announced it. This might be the first
female to run Def Jam.
Might be, yeah, might be.
What's your thought on it, though? Like, what's your thought on it? If for a label like Def Jam and what it represents to hip hop culture, right? And of course, it's just our opinion. But who would you have thought, or who would you, if it was up to you to make a decision as to who would be running Def Jam right now in 2021? Who would you give those reins to, and why?
That's in 21. That's a difficult. That's a difficult choice. It's a difficult.
And the reason why I asked that is because you and I, we met with Rich at Def Jam, a little over right before the pandemic hit, and
right,
and we were kind of getting some insight as to what was going on at the label at the same time. We were basically looking for a different type of situation prior to us landing at the Orchard.
Right. Yeah, that's hard to because there's a lot of dope execs out there too. Coach K is dope. Coach K and
P, right?
P.
And it's funny because you and I are on the same page, because I was thinking if it's anybody that can do it in 2021, it would be those guys.
I think because we got to understand, okay, in the prime of Def Jam, it was an East Coast,
driven
the East Coast.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think with where we are now, where it's the South is leading, it would make sense for an iconic label like that to be grounded in the South, if right now. And P would have been a very good choice in that.
And it's funny because and the reason why I say that is because the reason why I agree with you on that, I agree with you because if anything that these guys have been able to kind of demonstrate, they've demonstrated the selection of talent, right? The creation and curation of the content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they've been able to do it consistently, right?
Right.
And I think over the last probably 5 to 10 years now, these guys, the top music has been coming out of that camp. And it's been coming out consistently. If we look at like an artist like Little Baby right now, he's on fire, and it's incredible. And it's just like, okay, being able to acknowledge that type of talent and then be able to kind of foster it and then develop it. And then now to keep it on track and consistent out of bullshit. Right. That's huge to do. And I think a label like Def Jam, it needs that,
Yeah.
And, I get it. We're trying to, do things now in 2021 as it relates to diversity, et cetera, et cetera. But, as Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And, what those guys are doing currently is phenomenal. And I think that would have lended some, I don't know if you could have paid them enough to leave what they're doing to go to Def Jam, but
they would have had to do some sort of situation where they could have brought their QC label probably, but who knows?
I don't know if there's enough money in the world for that. It's like these guys are doing billions and billions and billions of streams. I don't know if it makes sense to do that, but that's just my opinion.
Right. They're the only people that ring off like at the top of my head. Ghazi's been dope at Empire.
Yes.
He's been very dope at Empire.
And I like his position on cryptocurrency and really trying to think forward. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think he's in the conversation at least. Out in a weird way, and this probably has nothing to do with numbers. I would love Irv to get a second shot, and that has nothing to do with
just passion.
It's just it has nothing to do with the numbers and where he's at. It's just more of, I feel that guy didn't really get his full. I think he was heir to the throne at Def Jam, and that situation that he had where
the legal issues.
Right. I think that kind of just stopped him right dead in the track. And it would have been dope for him to get back in that building and make some waves. But that's just really from a passion point of view. I think it would be a dope story, second chance type story. An opportunity to be able to come back. That's it's not a numbers thing.
It's crazy. It's so crazy, man. It's like it's when you think about how that label has been part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be handled a certain kind of way, and that's really just because it's part of the culture. And what it represents to the culture.
His passion for that label, who knows, so
gotta wait and see what's gonna happen. I know at the time when Rich was there, they had a very, very large roster of a lot of different artists, but a lot of artists that a lot of people maybe never even heard of. And I think a lot of those artists fell into what we call the analytical A&Ring, right? Where it was like, the music, you know, they were being picked up, not necessarily because of music, but because of what they may have been doing as far as analytic wise. And I'm not sure if everyone knew at the time that, you know, all of it, you know, most of it, if not all of it, could be fabricated at that time and manipulated. So this is one of those type of things. But
you know what's scary? But you know what's scary about? I have to say this about as far as these executive positions, man. If you can lose these positions very quickly, you know, or not saying that was the case in this situation, but the A&R seat, the executive seat, is like it's not moving chairs.
Yeah.
You know, I remember around October, I used to always get this. I used to get this piece of literature that would kind of break down where everybody's leaving, where everybody's going, and it used to bug me out that every year, you know, around October, around towards the fourth quarter, folks are either losing their jobs or moving to another company or moving back to another company. And it was just so interesting how these roles would just keep switching and changing. And it was never really stable. Like, you could think about it, Def Jam has ran through so many different presidents. You know, they ran through a lot in such a short span, you know, and you know, you kind of wonder, like, what's going on over there, that, you know, what's going on behind the scenes, or what's happening or what's not happening, you know, because I don't recall another record label going through this much changes that fast.
Well, it's kind of like what I call the it's kind of like what I call the 50 Cents or the Lil Wayne syndrome, right? It's like you're being compared against your past success, right? And there's just no way for you to do what you did, right? You'll never have another DMX, right? You'll never have another, you know, Method Man. You'll never have another Redman. You'll never have, you know, those artists that made those kind of impacts when they did, right? It's all about a timing thing. And if new executives are being compared to old levels of success or what Leor did or so forth and so on, then yeah, they're DOA. As soon as they walk into the door, there's no way for them to compete with that kind of legacy, right? It's like asking, you know, 50 to keep doing Get Rich, right? You can't do it, right? So for labels to be able to operate, of course, they're going to need those hit records, and you know, it's hard to find that right now with artists. And if an artist is hot this year, how do you make them hot again next year, right? How do you get another Old Town Road? You don't, right? So it's like you got one of those situations where it's kind of like, this is as big as it gets, and you know, these are needles in haystacks, man. So it's unless your A&R staff is really in tune with what's going on, and from our experience, you know, some of that A&R may or may not have been in tune the way that it should have been.
Right.
There's no way for you to be able to continue to get that kind of sustained level of music, sustained level of success that keep you in the seat and keep the label doors open. You know how that goes already.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there needs to be more young execs, because I remember at one time, you got to think, you know, the Diddy's was young, the Herbs were young.
Yep.
So the DNY was, you know,
yep.
You know, a young Dame, and
Yep.
you know, you got to think about, you know, all of that. And
these guys are in the streets, man. Like, I think that's the difference. It's like, these guys are in the street, man. These guys are, you know, they're feeling that energy, right? They're out there. They're seeing what these artists are doing, like, you know, live and direct, man. We're not looking at it from a chart metric or we're looking at, okay, what's this guy YouTube numbers looking like? What's his Instagram looking like? Nah, like these guys are going to see what these artists are doing. They're running with these artists in the street. They're seeing the energy for real, for real.
You know what's bugged out too? A lot of these A&Rs actually these days do not have the relationship with the artist.
No, because they're not in the game to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you ask me, I think most of them are afraid. if you want to be honest, because you got to be a certain caliber of cat to be out in the street with a lot of these artists right now. Like,
I remember like being as an A&R, being in the trenches, being in the studios, being in through their hoods, being on the block, being here and there with them. Like to the point you're coming home all late hours in the morning and you're coming to the meetings late. Oh, I was in the studio with the artist, or
right.
And being in that, and yeah, the environment is dangerous.
But now it's more dangerous than ever because look, through all our time coming up, I've never had to carry a gun to the studio, right? So we're talking about going to the studio with Maul Deep. We in the studio with Pun. We in the studio with
Rough Riders.
Well, they had a lot of guns. And what else? Just different cats now. But now, since in Atlanta, I'm a producer. And it's like they make you revert to like your old school Bronx, and you got to be walking around with your gun, and you try to do all this kind of stuff just because it's dangerous now. Like now, it's not a situation where people are trying to rob people, and it's not what it used to be, and maybe that's what got the A&R shook, and they don't want to be part of that, and they figure they're gonna be the executives from Skype. I'm gonna do Zoom. I'm gonna do Zoom meetings with them now, and I'm not gonna be in the studio because shit is heavy in the street right now. So it's like you out there and like you got to be real diligent about what's going on, and you got to move a certain kind of way. But if you're not from that environment, you being from Brooklyn, me being from the Bronx, if you're not from it, then you're not gonna know how to navigate those kind of spaces, and you're gonna be scared.
Yeah, I get it. Get it.
But in any event, this is the first Arkatech Beatz Music Business podcast. If thanks for listening. You can get more information from us, more articles, more resources, etc. On our website, www.arkatechbeatz.com. Check us out on Spotify, check us out on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, check us out on Facebook. We're on everything, on every platform.
Feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, definitely. If there's something that you want to talk about,
question that you want us to to address, we'll definitely address it on one of the podcasts. And I also hope that we provided some sort of information or something that was just valuable to you. And again, feel free to ask questions so that we can touch those topics. Yeah, we'll answer that as the best way we can.
That's what it is. All right, now, if anything, we're gonna holler at you. We're gonna be on this thing weekly, so check us out
next week.
Peace.
Arkatech